and welcome back to my channel, Learning Biology with Dr. Vanessa. Today is the first video that I'm releasing for my Kids Corner playlist, and I'm so excited. Today we're going to be learning about the heart and how blood flows through the heart. If you haven't already, make sure you click on the link in the description box that will take you to my website where you can download a free PDF of the heart, and that will allow you to use that to follow along with me during this. Before we start though, we are going to talk a little bit about the heart and what it does. Okay, so we all know that the heart does something and that it does something important. If you put your hand on your chest, you can feel your heart. Sometimes if you have a hard time feeling your heart by putting your hand on your chest, you can put your two fingers at the top of your neck and you can feel for a pulse there as well. And you can feel your heart beating. If you still can't feel it, stand up, run for 10 seconds, and then feel your heart. I am sure you will feel it. Okay, so the heart is really important. It's actually the center of what we call the circulatory system, and its purpose is to get blood all over the body, okay? And we need blood to go all over the body because blood provides really important things to all the cells that are in your body. So blood provides oxygen and nutrients to all those cells, and without those things, your body just wouldn't work. So the heart is constantly pumping this blood all over the body to deliver these things. Now the heart needs to get the blood, okay? And so it gets the blood on this side, which is actually the right side. Now, whenever you're looking at a picture of a heart, some really cool fact, okay, is that whenever you're looking at a picture of a heart, the left side of the heart, your left side, is actually going to be the right side that you're looking at the paper. Super confusing, but think about it this way. Every time you're looking at a heart that's drawn on a piece of paper, you're looking at it as if it's in the person who's standing in front of you, okay? So whenever you see a heart on a piece of paper, your left side is going to be the right side of the heart, and then your right side is going to be the left side of the heart. And the way we see it in this nice model that I have here is that this is going to be the right side of the heart, right? As if it were in me. This is going to be the right side of the heart. And the right side of the heart gets blood from all over the body into this portion right here, which is called the right atrium. We're going to go over this again when I show you the picture that you're going to print out and hopefully have in front of you, and we're going to label these. And this part gets what's called deoxygenated blood. Wow, that's a big word. Deoxygenated. What does it mean? It means that that blood has less oxygen in it. So it is going to come in here into the right atrium, and then it's going to go into the right ventricle. We're going to talk about this more in detail. And then it's going to go into this area here. And the whole reason here it's going to go into this area, this is the pulmonary trunk, is because it's going to eventually go to the lungs from this area. So it goes to the lungs, and in the lungs it picks up oxygen. Now we breathe in oxygen, and so we take that oxygen in, and the blood from the heart is going to pick that up in the lungs, and it's going to actually come back into these little areas. You see them in the back of the heart here, called pulmonary veins, and it's going to end up in the left atrium. So now the blood is called oxygenated because it now has oxygen. So you'll notice that on this side they show these vessels in blue, and on the other side they show them in red. And that is showing you the difference between deoxygenated blood, which has less oxygen, and then oxygenated blood, which just came from the lungs. So the right side of the heart takes blood to the lungs to get oxygenated, brings it to the left side of the heart, and then the left side is going to pump it all over the body. So the heart is really important because it's taking the blood from all over the body, bringing it to the lungs, it's getting oxygen, going back to the heart, and then being pumped all over the body. Why? Because the body needs oxygen, okay? The other thing that the blood picks up are nutrients. When you eat, right, the body breaks all that down into small little pieces that the that can be transferred from your cells into your blood, and then your blood picks that up and delivers it. So think of it as this great big highway system within your body that is delivering blood everywhere. So now that you know a little bit more about the heart and the importance of the heart, that it delivers both oxygen and nutrients, let's take that picture that you printed out and should have in front of you, and let's go through and learn exactly what these areas are called and how blood gets pumped around the heart to the lungs, back to the heart, and then all throughout the body. So now in front of you, you should have this worksheet that you printed off my website so that you can follow along with me and we can talk about the different parts of the heart and then how blood flows through the heart. So let's think about big picture again. Big picture is that the heart is going to take blood from all over the body, bring it to the lungs to get oxygenated, it goes back to the heart, and then back out throughout the whole body with that oxygenated blood. Now, before I was showing you the heart, and because the way the camera was pictured at me, you didn't really understand the difference with the right and the left. This picture shows it exactly how I meant it. Okay, so right here, this, though it's on your left-hand side, is the right side of the heart. So this is the right side of the heart, and this is actually the left side of the heart. So like I mentioned before, whenever we look at the heart in a picture or a diagram, we're going to see the right side of the heart on our left side and the left side of the heart on our right side. So now that we know that, let's start looking at the different parts and we'll label them. The first part that we're going to label is this area right here. This area is called the right atrium. Now there are 4 chambers in your heart. Everybody has 4 chambers. They are called the right atrium, and on the left side it is called the left atrium. And then we have 2 more chambers. Down here we have the right ventricle and then the left ventricle. Let's write those in so that you have them. So first we have the right atrium right here, the left atrium on this side, the right ventricle right here, and then you guessed it, the left ventricle on this side. If that went a little too fast for you, or if it ever does, please make sure to pause the video, catch up, and then continue on. So again, we have 4 chambers in the heart, 2 atria, and then 2 ventricles. Again, the right side of the heart is on your left side, and the left side of the heart is on your right side. So now we're going to look at these 2 areas, and these are the 2 areas that blood is going to come from all over the body. So actually blood from the top of the body comes in here, and blood from the lower part of the body comes from down here, and they feed into the right atrium. So these portions actually go into the right atrium, carrying in, remember, that deoxygenated blood. So this is deoxygenated blood, meaning it has less oxygen. This top one is called the superior vena cava. Again, the superior vena cava is going to drain blood from the top portion of the body into the right atrium. Superior means above. Down here we have the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is going to drain blood from the bottom portion of the body into the right atrium. So both of these are going to go into the right atrium right here. And then all of this again is deoxygenated blood. And then it has to go into the right ventricle that we just talked about. So blood actually fills into both the atria at the same time. And then when the heart contracts, blood goes into the ventricles at the same time. Now, in order to get into the right ventricle, it has to pass this little area here, which is kind of like a doorway. This is called a valve. And the valve is really important because when blood goes from the right atrium to the right ventricle, this valve closes so that when this ventricle contracts, blood does not go backwards. So it's really important. This valve right here is called the tricuspid valve. So when blood goes from the right atrium to the right ventricle, it has to pass through this tricuspid valve. Then the next place the blood is going to go to is into the pulmonary trunk, which is up here. But in order to go into the pulmonary trunk, it has to pass another valve. And this valve right here is called the pulmonary semilunar valve, which is quite a mouthful. So we're just going to call it the pulmonary valve right here. So we have the pulmonary valve right here, and then the pulmonary trunk right up in here. So what's interesting is that you notice that both of these have the word pulmonary in them. What does pulmonary mean? Do you remember where the blood is going to go next? If you guessed the lungs, you were right. And pulmonary is another word for lungs. So this is actually the pathway to the lungs. So the blood goes to the lungs, it picks up the oxygen that we breathe in, and then it has to come back to the heart. And it does so through these areas right here and right here, because there's actually a right and left lung. So blood has to come back from both of them. And so we call these pulmonary veins. So these are the pulmonary veins. Now blood is coming back from the lungs and into the pulmonary veins. Do you remember where it's going to go next? If you guessed left atrium, you are correct. So now we're in the left side of the heart, and if you remember from before, blood in the left side of the heart is oxygenated because it came from the lungs. Remember, if this is going too fast, please make sure to pause the video, catch up, and then start right back. Now that we have the blood back into this left atrium area, we need it to go into the left ventricle. Now the left ventricle has a really big job because eventually it's going to pump blood all over the body. But how does it get there? To go from the left atrium to the left ventricle, we have to pass another doorway. Did you guess that was a valve? You're really smart. Now, we are going to have to pass through this valve. And the valve on this side is called the bicuspid valve, also known as the mitral valve. So again, this valve right here is the bicuspid or mitral valve. It has two different names it goes by. So blood is going to go through that valve is going to close back up, and that blood is going to be in that left ventricle. So now blood is in the left ventricle, and then again, guess what? It has to pass one other valve. This valve is referred to as the aortic semilunar valve, very similar to the pulmonary semilunar valve, but again, we're just going to call it the aortic valve. So we have the aortic valve right here, and then the blood is going to go from that left ventricle through that aortic valve into this last portion up here, which is called the aorta. Now the aorta is the largest vessel in the body, and the purpose of the aorta is to get blood all through the body. So it's going to branch off into many different arteries, and this is what is going to get blood to the body, and it's going to travel all through the body. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that this left ventricle is much thicker than the right side, okay? And that's because the right side only has to pump blood to the lungs, and the heart actually sits in the middle of the lungs, so it's not a very far job. The left side, though, has to pump blood all over the body, and so it has to be a lot stronger. So this is actually muscle in the left ventricle that is actually thicker and stronger than the right side of the heart, and it's going to push that blood up through the aortic semilunar valve into the aorta, and then blood is going to go all over the body so that oxygen can be delivered to all the cells. Nutrients can be picked up from the food that we eat, and those nutrients can also be delivered to all the cells so that the body can survive. Now, one thing is that even though we go through the blood flow the way that we did, I did mention before that actually the right and left atria fill up with blood at the same time. And then when the heart contracts, it brings blood into the right and left ventricle at the same time. So the heart is actually doing both these things at the same time, taking deoxygenated blood, bringing it to the lungs, and then taking that oxygenated blood throughout the body. So both sides of the heart are working together all the time to be able to pump this blood all throughout your body. Now think about times when maybe you exercise. What happens? Does your heart beat a little bit faster? I'm sure it does. And that's because your body requires more oxygen and nutrients in order to do what it needs to do to create that energy to keep you moving. And so the heart is going to beat faster. Why? Because it needs to bring more oxygen and more nutrients to all over your body, especially those muscles that you're using in order to move. So that's why you'll notice that when you start moving a little faster, you start running, you start dancing, that your heart beats a bit faster. Thank you so much for learning with me today. I hope that this video helped you to really understand how blood flows through the heart and a couple big purposes that the heart serves in bringing oxygen around the body and also bringing nutrients. If you like this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I will be bringing you more videos. If you have any questions, please go ahead and make sure that you leave them in the comment box below, and I'll come back and answer them for you. Happy learning!